and is a woman in her 70s who lives a difficult life. Every day, she sits on the corner of Bin and Market with a small vegetable stall, where her faded bunches of vegetables are ignored by passers-by, passing by as if she is her own silent presence in the middle of life. Her husband died early, leaving her alone to raise her children. The tragedy was compounded when 5 years ago, her only son died in a work accident, leaving her and her grandson Max, a college student with a strong will, to overcome difficulties. Every day, she has to work hard to earn money to support her grandchildren and pay off debts, even though she knows that those bunches of vegetables bring only a small income. However, and never complained about fate. On her thin face, her eyes always lit up with patience and determination, like a small fire that never goes out in the night. Despite the coldness from customers, every morning, Mrs. and still persists in the field to pick up bunches of vegetables even though she only hopes to survive the day and take care of Max's children's education. Her small, modest vegetable stall seemed to be swallowed up by the bustle and vibrancy of Bin and Market. While other vendors like Miss Sarah with their bustling invitations attracted a large number of customers, her vegetable stall was silent as if no one was paying attention. But for Anne, each bunch of vegetables, even if not beautiful, is still the only hope left in her lost life. From early morning until dusk, Mrs. Anne sat quietly by the vegetable stall, her hands carefully folded in bundles. Those withered bunches of vegetables were not only a livelihood, but also a symbol of perseverance and sacrifice, the only way she could help Max continue her college dreams. For her, just seeing her grandson have the opportunity to succeed, all the hard work becomes worthwhile. And sat by her vegetable stall as usual, looking at the wilted bunches of vegetables that few people noticed. This familiar sight has become a part of her daily life. The passers-by at Bin and Market almost only glanced at her. No one stopped for long. She was used to this coldness, but in her heart she always hoped that something good would come. Every morning, she went to the field to pick up bunches of vegetables, hoping that they would be enough to feed her grandson Max, the only one left in the family. One afternoon, as the pale yellow sunlight of the sunset began to spread throughout the market, and suddenly felt someone standing watching her. When she lifted her head, she saw a young man, about 30, standing in front of her vegetable stall. He did not appear strange or uncomfortable because of the decay of the vegetables, but on the contrary, he smiled slightly, and then bent down to buy all the bunches of vegetables that she had left, and was a little surprised. For some reason, a young person decided to buy all these few vegetables. He did not show any signs of concern or discomfort. On the contrary, his attitude was very gentle. When she reached out to receive the money, he not only paid, but also smiled warmly, as if this vegetable was worth a lot more than the amount she received. "I thank you," he said, his voice warm, his eyes looking at her with interest. This thank you surprised Mrs. N. Although she was used to cold eyes, these words made her heart tighten. How could a person be so kind to her? A poor old man who lived alone in the corner of the market. Before he could ask any more questions, the young man began to talk to her. "She probably doesn't remember me, but I'm John, a friend of her son, who helped me when I first started my business." John's words surprised Anne. Her son died 5 years ago in a work accident, and she no longer saw anyone from his friends. Emotions flared up in her when she realized that this man was her son's close friend, whom she had heard so many times about, who had been helped by her son while he was alive. "Don't you recognize me?" John continued, his voice containing a hint of nostalgia. "In the past, your son helped me a lot. When I started the business, he was the one who gave me important advice and helped me through difficult times. It is thanks to his help that I have the success I have today." And listened, tears naturally rolling down her cheeks. It felt like a part of her son's dear past suddenly came alive before her eyes. She never thought that someone would come back to help her, to repay her son for what he had done. "Your son is a good man, ma'am," John added, "so I wanted to help her as a way to repay him. I know you're having a hard time, and these bunches of vegetables may be just a small part of your life, but I hope what you do can help you to make some of the hardship," and said nothing, just looked at John in silence. At that time, She no longer saw the young man as a stranger, but a friend of the family, a connection between the past and the present. And in that moment, she felt that love still exists, no matter how difficult life is. Since then, John has become a regular visitor of Anne. He not only came to buy vegetables but also spent time chatting and asking her about life. John seemed to understand that the bundles were not mere commodities, but whole lives, the last hope that Anne had placed in her grandson. He began to help her improve the way she sold. With John's guidance, she learned how to bundle vegetables more neatly, clean vegetables, and present them more beautifully to attract customers. Gradually, her bunches of vegetables are no longer indifferent to passers-by as before. The business was getting better and better, and began to feel a little joy from this change. More than that, John not only helped materially, but also brought comfort and spiritual motivation to Anne. His comebacks are not only a support, but also a symbol of compassion and sharing. For John, he saw not only an old woman in need of help, but also the story of Anne's sacrifice and boundless love for her grandson Max. To Anne, John was like a glimmer of light in the dark days, is a person who brings hope and belief that kindness still exists in the middle of life. Thanks to the help of John and the others in the market, Max finally graduated from college with honors. He got a good job and quickly helped Anne. The difficulties gradually passed, but the lessons of gratitude and sharing that Max received were always with him. When Max wore his suit to work, Anne's eyes were full of pride. She knew that all her sacrifices were worth it. One late afternoon, as it was getting dark, Max stood in the middle of his small classroom, looking at his unfinished work. He was tired but never allowed himself to fall. He knew that if he did not overcome these hardships, Mrs. Anne would have to work even harder. He was the only one left for her to put her hope on. Max didn't want his grandmother to work so hard, but he also understood that she never wanted to give up her education. Although she may have to go out to the fields every morning to pick up the bunch of withered vegetables, even though she still sits by her little stall in the evenings, Max knows it all just to make sure he can continue his education, maybe have a brighter future. Max is not only the grandchild that Anne loves, but also the reason why she continues to cling to this life. During those years, Anne was always silently worried about Max. She couldn't deny the tiredness in her heart, but hope in her grandson was the only strength that kept her resilient. However, Anne always felt the difference in Max. He was a grateful and strong-willed boy. He always tried his best, not only studying, but also helping her in selling vegetables, although sometimes that work could bring nothing more than a few pennies. One day, as she was sitting next to the vegetable stand as usual, Max came home with a strange joy. He had just received a full scholarship from a big company, a great opportunity for him to continue his education. Mrs. Anne's eyes sparkled, and happiness surged in her heart. After months of hard work, her nights of working have finally paid off. Max, the nephew she had always trusted, was able to go out into the world and find the light. And she knew that she no longer had to worry about his future. Therefore, when she saw Max sitting in the room studying books full of hope, she felt that all the hardship, all the pain she had gone through was worth it. Max, with her intelligence and determination, helped her rediscover her faith in life. He was her pride, the reason for her to continue walking in the difficult days. She knew that even if she had to live her life in deprivation, as long as Max could succeed, as long as he could stand on his feet, she would be satisfied. Max is not only her hope, but also the guardian of the dream she has set. He helped her every day, even though that help couldn't solve all the difficulties. But in the moments when she felt the loneliest, Max was always the only person she could rely on. That feeling became even more pronounced when Max graduated from college and began to have a stable job. He began to take care of her, buying her a small house near the market, where she could rest more securely. As she watched Max grow up, and truly felt that all of her sacrifices over the years had borne fruit. One autumn day, when Max returned home to visit, he saw Anne sitting under a tree in front of the porch, knitting the woolen scarf he had loved as a child. Her face looked serene and content, no longer tired of the hard years. Max walked over, hugged her in his arms, and thanked her for all she had done. and smiled kindly, her eyes shining with joy. "Just seeing you happy, you're satisfied," she said. Anne's life, despite many ups and downs, finally found peace and warmth thanks to the love of her family and the kindness of the community. Her story became an inspiration to those around her, reminding her that no matter how difficult life may be, patience and kindness will always bring a light of hope.